In June 2008, the world will gather for the first time in Singapore in a quest to find solutions to its water woes. It is 2 weeks to one of the largest water events to be held in Singapore. At PUB, Singapore's national water agency, several teams have been working for the last 1.5 years to ensure that this inaugural event will be a success. The country will, after all, be playing host to more than 300 top policymakers and politicians, and 5,000 delegates and trade visitors from all over the world, all convening for the Singapore International Water Week, a week-long event touted as the global platform for water solutions.
Increasingly, I think countries across the world are looking at water and trying to find practical solutions to their water needs. We've been able to develop a solution which is unique to our own, and we want to be able to build a platform in which we can bring people together to learn from each other and share the experiences that we've developed over the last 40 years.
The Singapore water story began on a dire note. 40 years ago, Singapore had not enough water for its booming population. Water was the country's Achilles heel. Its rivers were terribly polluted. Flooding was widespread. To survive, Singapore needed to augment its domestic water reserves.
If you look back at our circumstances, we are very unique. We are a country which was never meant to be a country, but we are forced to become a country. We have to be independent, and therefore we have to solve our own problems. So I think one of the things that the countries can learn is that we have a strong political leadership that wants to make sure that there is an adequate supply of water for Singaporeans.
The government resolved that Singapore would not go thirsty, and that's how the idea of the 4 national taps came into being. The first tap refers to water from local water catchments. The rivers were cleaned up in 10 years. Drains, canals, and reservoirs were built to collect rainwater. The second tap being imported water from Johor under 2 bilateral agreements which expire in 2011 and 2061. The third tap, which provides 30 million gallons of water per day, comes from a desalination plant. And the last tap refers to new water, wastewater that's been recycled into drinkable, ultra-clean water. New water catapulted Singapore into international fame. In April 2008, Singapore clinched the Environmental Contribution of the Year awarded by Global Water Intelligence for successfully reclaiming water. Early in 2007, Singapore had clinched the coveted Stockholm Industry Water Award, the water industry's equivalent of the Nobel Prize for wringing maximum value for every single drop of water. Seeing that Singapore was once ranked the 6th most water-short country in the world, PUB hopes the nation's successful water story will inspire other thirsty nations.
The significance is that in order to find solutions to water problem, you don't look just to technology. You don't look just to an international organization like ADB for financial help, but you should also learn the best practices of others. The contribution that Singapore can make to other developing countries in the world is to say that no matter how difficult your water problem appears, if there's a political will, and if there's good governance and good management, it can be resolved.
So come June 23rd, top policymakers, ministers, academics, decision makers, essentially the who's who in the water industry, will congregate in Singapore for the Water Leaders Summit, one of the key components of the Water Week. Chairing this would be Professor Tommy Koh, who is also Singapore's ambassador at large.
Being good Singaporeans, we are very pragmatic. We are not interested in policy and scholarship per se, but in policy and scholarship which will enable us to find solutions to practical problems.
We hope that out of the summit will come some clear messages, for the world on what are the right type of water policies to pursue, to be able to come up with sustainable water solutions for cities.
The emphasis is not just on solutions, but practical solutions, and not textbook theories. So apart from the Water Leaders Summit, the PUB team is also preparing for a myriad of other water-related events that would drive the search for solutions that work. Such as the Water Convention, a scientific conference that focuses on practical technology. And the Water Expo, the meeting place for buyers and sellers of water technologies. The Singapore government has invested over $730,000 to ensure that this event would boost the country's reputation as a world water technology leader and bring it closer to its aim of becoming a global hydro hub.
As this was the first event of its kind for Singapore, what we did was we went through a comprehensive planning thinking process to make sure that we have something for everybody from the water industry, right from the government officials, ministers, way down to the technicians, the engineers, practitioners, as well as those who are interested in the water industry.
A large proportion of those attending the Water Week are from Asia, and Michael and his team hopes this event will be especially relevant to the world's largest continent as it propels headlong into the 21st century. By 2030, Asia's urban population will increase to 5 billion, further straining an already inadequate infrastructure for water supply, housing, and sanitation. Already, 700 million don't have safe drinking water. And so, the theme chosen for this year's event, Sustainable Water Solutions for Cities.
If I could take you back to the year 2000, on the eve of the new millennium, the political leaders of the world assembled in New York and met at the UN. At this summit, which has since come to be known as the Millennium Summit, they adopted a number of visionary goals and targets. And one of the targets that they adopted is to reduce by half the number of people in the world who do not have access to safe drinking water. My personal ambition is to reduce that number to 0 by 2025, because I think that you cannot talk about human security if human beings don't have access to safe drinking water.